Welcome to Learn English Speaking. Let's talk stories. Here we bring you amazing stories to improve your English fluency. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting lessons. Let's learn together.
Chapter 5. Death by the Hudson River. It was midday before I got back to East 43rd Street. I picked up a snack at Grand Central Station before returning to the office. It hadn't taken Stella long to find phone numbers for Van Zant's. There were over 50 in all of New York City. "Okay, Stella, we can share this job," I said. "I'll take the first phone book, and you can start on the second. Say you're an old friend of O'Neill's, and that you're trying to find him." It was slow and boring work, but I felt it would be worth it in the end. "Good afternoon. Is this Mr. Van Zant? If I could have a minute of your time? You see, I'm trying to find an old friend of mine, Patrick O'Neill. Would you know him?" "No? Okay. Thanks for your time." As the calls continued, I wasn't feeling too hopeful. Then I got an answering machine. I listened to the message. "I'm sorry I can't get to the phone right now. Leave a message or phone 212-555-01230. I called the number. The phone was answered after a couple of rings. First, the sound of jazz music, then a voice. "Frankie's Cocktail Lounge." "Good afternoon. Is that Mr. Van Zant?" I asked. "Hold on." I heard the guy shout above the noise. "Frank, call for you." Could this finally be the right Van Zant? I waited patiently. "Frank Van Zant speaking." "If I could have a moment of your time, Mr. Van Zant," I began. "I've lost the phone number and address of an old friend, Patrick O'Neill. Would you know how I could find him?" "Oh, yeah? I might. Who's asking?" replied Van Zant. Not very welcoming, I thought. Time to tell another lie. "The name's Marley. I'm an old college friend. Patrick and I were at accounting school together." "If you're so clever, mister, look in the phone book. And don't call again," he added, then put the phone down. The line went dead. Clearly, this guy didn't like me asking after O'Neill. This time, I felt I was in luck. Perhaps I should visit Frankie's Cocktail Lounge. Before I could organize anything, the phone rang. I picked it up and heard that voice from the past again, Captain Oldenburg. "Marley," he shouted, "your line's been busy for ages. Could I have a minute of your valuable time?" "Sure, go ahead," I replied, holding the phone away from my ear. "Get yourself to the 79th Street boat basin. I got something to show you," he laughed. When Oldenburg laughs, it usually means bad news. "Okay, but why? What's going on?" I asked. "It's a surprise, but I want you here now," Oldenburg ordered. I told Stella what was happening. She gave me a smile and said,
"Don't get mad at Oldenburg. Remember, we may need his help."
I was back on the subway again, this time to West 79th Street. I walked the 2 blocks from the subway station west toward the Hudson River and crossed the Riverside Park to the boat basin. From here, you could see across the river to New Jersey. The temperature had dropped, and the sky was full of heavy gray clouds. A cold wind started to blow from the west. All around the boat basin were houseboats. I've heard it's the cheapest way to live in this city. Ahead, I could see NYPD cars in a parking lot near the river. As I got closer, an NYPD cop stopped me and said, "Sorry, sir, you can't enter." "The name's Marley. Captain Oldenburg's expecting me," I replied. "Okay, come with me, and we'll find the captain," said the cop. Oldenburg was standing in the parking lot behind a Chevrolet Impala. He was smiling, which always made me feel uncomfortable. "Take a look at this," said Oldenburg, waving at the car. Oldenburg moved to the back of the car and opened the trunk. Inside was a dead man. Oldenburg called to the police doctor. "Could you show me his face again, Doc?" he asked. "Okay, Marley, time for your surprise." The NYPD doctor was wearing a suit of white material over her clothes and white plastic gloves and shoes. She carefully took the dead man's head in her hands and moved it round so we could see the face. His skin was gray and his mouth was open. Between his eyes was a hole. "Marley, meet Ronald Steinman." "Doc, would you tell Mr. Marley what you know?" said Oldenburg.
I'd say he's been dead about 2 or 3 days. A single shot to the head. You see these cuts around his face? This guy was hit hard a number of times before he died. Can't tell you much more just now,"
the police doctor told me. Heavy rain began to fall. I was feeling sick. Although I've seen dead bodies before, I still get that same horrible feeling. "I just checked the license plate. This car belongs to Mr. Patrick O'Neill, Henry Street, Brooklyn." "We need to talk, Marley," said Oldenburg. "And I guess you need a drink. Let's go somewhere warmer." Oldenburg took me to the Boat Basin Cafe, where he ordered me a double scotch. The drink was just the right medicine. "Marley, I got an idea, and I think I may be right. Your client could be Patrick O'Neill, an accountant with Ocean Star Finance? Or one of his family?" he asked. I nodded. The safest thing was to listen and see what Oldenburg wanted. "Steinman disappeared sometime on Friday afternoon. I've been asking questions at Ocean Star. On Friday morning, people heard Steinman and O'Neill arguing. This was no conversation between friends. People said it was more like a fight. It was behind closed doors, so they couldn't say what they were arguing about. Today, Steinman is found in O'Neill's car, murdered. At the same time, nobody seems to know where O'Neill is. You see where this is leading?" I understood very well. The sick feeling in my stomach started to get stronger. "I'm talking murder, Marley. I want to question Patrick O'Neill about the murder of Ronald Steinman. I want to know why O'Neill was paying money into Steinman's account. Also, the reason why O'Neill had sent him an angry email. It began, 'I didn't think you could be so stupid.' That means I have to find him, and I believe you know where he is. You used to be a cop, Marley, so you know the way the police work. If you refuse to tell me, that's a crime." I held my head in my hands. I could only tell Oldenburg the truth. That wouldn't be what he wanted to hear. Believe me, Oldenburg, I'm being completely straight with you. I have no idea where O'Neill is. Yes, my client is his wife. All she knows is that her husband is hiding somewhere. Okay. Another thing, Marley. I have to question Mrs. O'Neill, but I can't find her. I just get the answering machine every time I call. I need your help, said Oldenburg. Okay, Oldenburg. I'll see what I can do, I replied. On the journey back to East 43rd Street, I thought about the information I already knew. I took a fresh page in my notebook and wrote down the facts I knew for sure and the questions that needed answers. I knew O'Neill had disappeared sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning. He didn't like his boss, Steinman, and on Friday he'd argued with him. Also, he had sent an angry email to Steinman. O'Neill had made large payments to Steinman and Van Zandt. He was interested in poker. Someone had broken into his house and stolen the hard drive of his computer. Now the police had found Steinman dead in the trunk of O'Neill's car. What was I less sure about? What did O'Neill know which put him in danger? Had Steinman known the same thing? Had O'Neill lost heavily at poker? Was Ocean Star in difficulties? What could explain those payments to Steinman and Van Zandt? And finally, could a guy like O'Neill kill? The more I thought about it, Ocean Star had to be the key to all the questions. I called Mrs. O'Neill at her daughter's apartment. You said that your husband took his car when he disappeared, I said.
That's right. It's not parked in the street,
she replied. I'm afraid I have some terrible news. This morning, Steinman's body was found in the trunk of your husband's car. I heard a scream over the phone. Then nothing. Are you still there? I asked.
Yes,
she replied quietly.
This is just awful. I can't believe it. So what happens now?
The police are now looking for your husband, I explained. I'm sorry, but you'll have to talk to the police.
I realize I don't have any choice,
replied Mrs. O'Neill.
But there's one condition. The meeting should be at your office on East 43rd Street.
Chapter 6. Questions and Answers. Wednesday, October 6th. Captain Oldenburg and Mrs. O'Neill were in my office at 9 o'clock. Mrs. O'Neill was wearing a very fashionable black jacket and skirt with a white blouse. Maybe she did her shopping on Fifth Avenue. Oldenburg was dressed in an ugly brown suit with an orange tie, clothes that had been in fashion sometime during the last century. Before Oldenburg started questioning Mrs. O'Neill, I told him what I knew about Patrick O'Neill. I was trying to show the captain that O'Neill was just a good ordinary guy, not a murderer. As I see it, Patrick O'Neill could be in the middle of something very dangerous, I began. So far, we have no clear idea of what that might be. We can't be sure if the key to this case is Ocean's Star or something that happened between O'Neill and Steinman. Or both. Let's move on to O'Neill the person. We have a happily married family man who's worked for the same employer for over 10 years. In that time, he's risen to be second in his department. He's given years of his life to the firm. Also, he has no criminal history. Oldenburg started to question Mrs. O'Neill. As I thought, his main interest was the argument between O'Neill and Steinman. "Mrs. O'Neill," said Oldenburg, "I was told at Ocean's Star that your husband and Steinman argued on Friday before they both disappeared. We don't know what it was about, but people heard Mr. O'Neill shouting. Would you say they worked well together?"
"It was never easy for Patrick," she replied. "Steinman pushed people hard. Second best was never good enough for him. I can't say Patrick liked him, but he did his work as well as he could."
2 years ago, your husband had the chance to become the department head, but Lorraine Houston brought in Steinman. How did your husband feel about this?" asked Oldenburg.
"At the time, he was angry, but he learned to accept what had happened. Life has to go on,"
Mrs. O'Neill replied. "Could you think of anybody who would want to kill Steinman?" Oldenburg asked her.
"No,"
she replied.
"Okay, so he's not the nicest of guys, but that's no reason for murder."
"Your husband was paying money to Steinman. Do you have any idea why?" Oldenburg went on.
"None at all,"
Mrs. O'Neill replied. Oldenburg continued with questions about the angry email, which Mrs. O'Neill answered patiently. At last he said, "One more thing, Mrs. O'Neill. Would you agree to a search of your house?"
"I guess I have to,"
she replied, and handed him her keys.
"Go ahead and do it."
"Thanks," he said. "If I'm going to get any further with this case, I must find him. Will you call him?" Mrs. O'Neill looked him straight in the eyes and said,
"That's impossible. Patrick only calls me from payphones."
"Patrick O'Neill is wanted for murder," Oldenburg said. "And if you, Marley, or you, Mrs. O'Neill, know where he is and refuse to tell me, that's a crime. You could both find yourselves in jail." Mrs. O'Neill looked angrily at Oldenburg. If looks could kill, he would be a dead man. After Oldenburg had left the building, Mrs. O'Neill started to cry.
"I'm sure Patrick has nothing to do with Steinman's murder,"
she said.
"But what if the police don't believe me? And what if the people who killed Steinman go after Patrick next?"
"I will find him, I promise you," I said. "But you must be careful. When you get back to Julia's apartment, stay inside, okay? Stella, could you call a cab for Mrs. O'Neill?" When Mrs. O'Neill had left, I organized some help from an old friend who used to be a policeman like myself. A guy who was as useful as 10 NYPD officers. Joe Blaney. He'd taught me more about staying alive on the streets of Manhattan than you could ever learn at Police Academy. He's the sort of person you needed if there was going to be trouble. And he knew how to use a gun. I last carried a gun when I was a New York cop, I haven't carried one since, and haven't wanted to. But there are times when one is necessary. I picked up the phone. "Joe, I have work for you. It could be dangerous, so bring a gun. A missing person's in danger, and we're gonna find him. Come to East 43rd Street with your car. As soon as you can." Chapter 7. Frankie's Cocktail Lounge. The plan was that Joe and I would pay a visit to Van Zandt and see if he could lead us to O'Neill. Meanwhile, Mrs. O'Neill would come back to the office that afternoon and stay with Stella. Joe Blaney arrived in his car soon after midday. He's in his middle 60s, but he's tall and slim with a full head of white hair. Although he's probably 20 years older than me, I'd say he looks younger. Some guys have all the luck. In the car, Joe pulled his jacket to one side to show me the gun. "Let's hope we don't have to use this, boss," he said. We drove downtown on 2nd Avenue toward 4th Street. The traffic wasn't too heavy, and we soon arrived in the East Village. We went straight along 4th Street to Avenue A. Frankie's Cocktail Lounge was on 5th Street, between Avenues A and B. Joe stopped the car. Above the double doors, I could read the words, "Frankie's, cold drinks, warm people, hot sounds." "Let's do it," I said. We went into Frankie's and sat at a table. At first, it seemed almost dark, but soon I could see better. It was a comfortable room with armchairs, sofas, red carpets, and the sound of jazz guitar music. We needed clear heads, so we ordered 2 coffees, not the cocktail specials. There were no customers at the bar, so I had a look at who was working behind it. A couple of bartenders, and someone who I guessed must be the boss. He was medium height, with a short black beard, but without a single hair on his head. "I think we've found Van Zandt," I said, looking toward the bar. "We'll try and have a little talk." I walked over to the bar with Joe. Van Zandt looked up from some papers he was checking. "Would you be Mr. Van Zandt?" I asked. "That's me," he replied. "What can I do for you?" "Could I talk to you about Patrick O'Neill?" I asked. "Who are you?" Van Zandt asked carefully, and gave me a cold, hard look. "Nat Marley, licensed private investigator," I said. "I spoke to you on the phone yesterday. I believe you know O'Neill. His wife's very worried about him, and I think you could help." "I don't have to talk to you," he said angrily. Suddenly, a big, strong bartender was standing in front of me. "You got a problem, boss?" he asked Van Zandt. "It's okay," I said quietly. "We're not looking for trouble. Look, take my cell phone and press call. You'll get my office. Ask to talk with O'Neill's wife." Van Zandt did as I said, and spent a couple of minutes checking facts with Mrs. O'Neill. After a while, he returned the cell phone and said, "Okay, what do you want?" He waved the bartender away and led us to a room behind the bar. Inside, the air didn't smell too fresh. Old cigarette smoke. Van Zandt found chairs and sat us at a round table. I introduced Joe, then began questioning Van Zandt. "I believe that O'Neill has paid you a lot of money," I asked. "You're not stealing from him, I hope." "It's not robbery," replied Van Zandt. "That's what I won fairly in a poker game. It works both ways. Patrick's an excellent player, and I've paid him thousands when I lost. We're old friends. I've known him since we were both kids, working nights at a 24/7 store." "So explain this," I continued. "Why does a Wall Street accountant come to a back room in the East Village to play poker?" "I've met several guys like Patrick, hard-working family men who earn good money. But they want a little more from life. Maybe they're just bored, so I give them a good time. I know organizing backroom poker games is a crime, but I'm not hurting anybody. These guys have the money, like Patrick's boss, Steinman. I'm just offering them a service." "So O'Neill brought Steinman here?" I asked Van Zandt in surprise. "Yeah, once or twice. I don't think Patrick really wanted to, but I guess he couldn't refuse. One night we all lost heavily to Steinman. He played like poker was his second profession. I had to ask Patrick not to bring him again. It would hurt my bank account too much." Van Zandt had answered 2 questions. Why O'Neill had made payments to both himself and Steinman. "Okay, let's forget the money," I said. "I'm really interested in finding O'Neill. You know he's in some kind of trouble." "After reading about Steinman's murder in the morning papers, I had a good idea what the trouble could be," replied Van Zandt. "Patrick got here soon after midnight Sunday morning. He said he was in danger, but he wouldn't talk about it. He needed to hide someplace for a few days, and was going to check into a hotel around here. He also told me to keep quiet if anyone came asking questions. And one last thing. He told me to expect a letter from his firm. He said it was really important, and I should keep it for him." "If it's arrived, could we take a look?" I asked. "I guess I could show you," he said. It was a thick envelope with the address written in O'Neill's handwriting. I took out my pocket knife and cut it open. Inside, I found some papers, probably about 20 pages. At the top of each page, I could see the words Ocean Star Finance in red and gold letters. On every page, there were lines of numbers. "You know what this is?" asked Van Zandt. "I guess some sort of accounts from Ocean Star," I said. "Another guess. This information may have something to do with Steinman's murder. Mr. Van Zandt, I'd like to thank you for your help. We may be able to reach O'Neill in time. I don't think anyone else knows these papers are here. So could you keep them in a safe place?" Before Joe and I started searching the East Village, I called Stella to tell her what we'd discovered so far. When I'd finished, Stella said,
"Mrs. O'Neill wants to speak with you." "Mr. Marley, thank you," said Mrs. O'Neill. "You're getting close to Patrick. I can feel it. Please find him, and make the police believe that my husband is no killer.
Chapter 8. The East Village. Our search area was wide. Everything between 4th Avenue and Avenue D, then everything between East Houston Street and East 14th Street. Within that area are 14 streets and 8 avenues. Now do the math. That makes around 80 blocks. The good news was that if O'Neill was staying in a hotel in the area, like Van Zandt said, we didn't have too many places to check. Most of the hotels are either along 3rd Avenue or the streets off it. There were 2 problems. First, what sort of hotel would O'Neill choose? Somewhere busy, on a crowded street where he wouldn't be noticed? Or would he prefer somewhere quieter and more basic, with less activity? A place where it would be easier to watch and listen. Second, how would we find out if he was staying there? Would he check in under his own name? And how could we get the hotel receptionist to tell us if he was there? Hotel receptionists don't give information about their guests to complete strangers. So we had a plan. I'd say I had a business meeting with O'Neill. To help receptionists believe the story, I'd asked Stella to produce some company information for Patrick O'Neill Accounting. There was a photo of O'Neill on the front, which I'd hold so the receptionist could see his face. Time after time at hotels, I introduced myself and spoke to the receptionists. "Excuse me, the name's Marley. I have a meeting with Patrick O'Neill. Would you call his room to tell him I'm at reception?" We had no luck at the more expensive places, which were full of tourists and business people. After asking at a few, we knew what sort of answers to expect. "I'm sorry, sir. Do you have the correct hotel? I wish I could help you, but—" Hour after hour, our search area grew wider. We had moved away from 3rd Avenue, deeper into the center of the East Village, toward Alphabet City. At some of the cheaper places, the receptionists were less patient. "We got nobody by that name staying here, mister." "Look, mister, I just work here. It's not my job to remember faces." We continued until early evening. It was 6:30, not long before sunset, and the sky in the west was growing pink. We just had 1 or 2 more places to check in Alphabet City. The next hotel, the Madigan Inn on Avenue B, looked like an ugly, dirty place, but the receptionist was helpful. I asked the usual questions and made sure that she could see O'Neill's photo. Then the surprise. I could see from the look on her face that she knew something.
"Sure, I know the guy," she said, "but not by the name of O'Neill. I don't know if I'm allowed to say."
I showed her my investigator's license and said, "The truth is, this guy's life is in danger. I'm working for his family, and we need to find him quickly, before someone else does." She believed me and turned to check the computer.
"Yeah, there he is," she said. "He stayed for 1 night and checked out yesterday. The name he gave was Brendan Toohey."
"Can you tell me anything more?" I asked. "Did he have any visitors? How did he spend his time?"
"Well, he asked for a room on the street. That seemed to be important. He didn't have any visitors and spent most of the time in his room. I think he was watching the street. Or that's what I thought when I looked up at his window."
Thanks, I said. You've been really helpful.
You could ask at our other hotel, she said. I could phone ahead to tell them to expect you. It's the Metro, on Avenue C between 4th and 3rd.
Please, if you would, I replied. As we left, I said to Joe, at last we're getting somewhere. I think I know what he's doing. Just staying a night at one place, then moving on. Joe suddenly stopped in front of the door to the street. Nat, you see that car just across the street? The black one? I asked. That's it. I think I've seen it before. Outside your office, but I couldn't be too sure, Joe went on. I studied the car carefully. A Lexus, which costs serious money. 3 guys with dark glasses were inside. It was starting to get dark, and I've never liked guys who wear sunglasses at night. I had a horrible feeling that those people meant trouble. Then the driver looked toward us, and the car quickly moved along the avenue. In the poor light, I couldn't read the license plate. "What do you think, boss?" asked Joe. "Are they following us?" The streetlights had now come on. Under their yellow light, I could see the answer to Joe's question. On the road beside Joe's car was a knife. There was no air in 2 of the tires, so it was impossible to drive. Now I realized what was happening. Those guys had followed us, hoping we would lead them to O'Neill. They knew we were checking hotels, and the Metro was the last one in the area. They wanted to make sure they got there first. We ran across to Avenue C, but we were losing valuable time. The Metro, like the last hotel, looked as if nobody cared for it. The receptionist, though, was friendly and welcomed us with a smile. "Hi, I'm Gina," she said. "You guys didn't need to hurry. I stopped her and said, "The receptionist at the Madigan just phoned ahead and told you to expect us. We're looking for Patrick O'Neill. He's in danger and might be using a different name. Has anyone asked for him?" I showed her O'Neill's photograph. "Oh, yes," said Gina. "He's staying here, but under the name of Bernard Delaney. Nice, quiet guy. He stays in his room most of the time. There's something I don't understand. You're the second group of people asking about him. The others went up to his room 5 minutes ago, but they just left." "What others?" I shouted.
3 guys in black suits and dark glasses," she replied. "I thought they were the ones I was expecting."
"Did O'Neill leave with them?" I asked.
"No," Gina replied.
"Oh, my God! Give me the room number, quick!" I shouted. "I hope we're not too late."